happy I am to see all of you on the screen. It's just been so long that I've seen all of you, and it's just wonderful to see you all here. So I'm gonna formally start, and I want to introduce myself. My name is Valeria. I am the executive director of the Santa Cruz Art League, and I am beyond happy and excited to see you all here tonight. This is a special opportunity for us to celebrate this amazing project called the Califas Legacy Project. And I am happy to report that the exhibition is now live both on the Santa Cruz Art League website as well as Museo Eduardo Carrillo. And I want to thank our partners in crime. I see Betsy. Hello, Betsy. I see Shelby from UC Santa Cruz. I'm just so happy to see you all here. And we wanted to make this opportunity really an opportunity to get to know many of the artists. The exhibition is there. You're going to be able to, to see the artworks, and I just wanted to give an opportunity for folks to meet all of you. And we, 2 years ago or more, when we started working on this, we had hopes that we were going to do this in person, but yet here we are, and we're gonna make the best that we can, and we're gonna have a good conversation. I also want to introduce you my co-host and a board member at the Art League, Edward Ramirez. Edward, if you can wave. All right. So we're gonna share some of the questions. I want to make a quick. I'm gonna throw in a quick commercial and to say that my co-host, if you haven't met him, he's an amazing Santa Cruz County based artist. He is a 2020 fellow with the Rydell Visual Arts Award. And so we're super excited about it. So I hope you check out the exhibition that will be at the MA into 2022. So, all right, so I'm gonna get started. We decided before we started that the order that the artists are gonna answer the questions is gonna be the two muralists, Ralph and Yermo, and then Amalia. So I'm gonna ask two questions, and Edward is gonna ask one of the questions. And what I want to request is, if you have comments, questions, please put it in the chat, because we're only together for an hour. We're not going to have, maybe we'll have time at the end, but if we don't, please put it in the chat, and both myself and Edward will keep an eye on it, and we're gonna bring it to the group if we have time. So without further ado, I'm gonna get started. And I have to thank first of all, our partners in crime. As I said, this was also, I want to thank our funder. This was a project funded on the Art League's side. It was funded by the California Arts Council, and we're just really grateful, for the opportunity to do this, and grateful to everybody in the community, the Santa Cruz Public Library, and all, a huge group of folks that made this happen. So, all right, so I'm gonna get started with the question. So the first question is to the artists. Please share with us what medium or media or art form you work with, and what about this media continues to inspire you to work that way. So we'll get started with Ralph.
Well, I've been painting murals for 45 years and doing workshops, art workshops in the community. For me, it's my passion. It's what I love to do. And I'm a product of the 60s. And being a product of the 60s, I always wanted to make a difference in our culture. And I found the best way to do it for me was by going out in the community, painting murals, and doing arts and crafts workshops. I love to collaborate with community folks. I like to kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, take the mystery out of art. A lot of people, the community folks, and I think Yermo will attest to this, the first thing they say when they get involved in our project is, I can't paint, I don't have any talent. And or there's always a parent that comes in and says, Juan here wants to paint, paint murals, but he doesn't have the talent that his brother has. His brother is naturally talented. And I tell people that, hey, it's art, painting or drawing or whatever is like anything else. It's like playing a sport. The more you do it, the better you get. It's practice, practice, practice. And if you're consumed and you have the dedication, you can become a fairly good artist. I found that was many kids that came up, and I think Yermo attests to this too. Kids that didn't think they had any talent would just, it's like they found their calling, so to speak. And so anyway, murals and community art workshops are my medium. And the other medium I work in too is acrylics. That kind of answer your question there?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. All right, thank you. So let's see, Yermo.
Can you repeat that question for me one time, please?
Sure, no problem. Please share with us what medium or art form you work with, and what about it continues to, to inspire you to keep working with this medium.
I feel like I went through, as an artist, just starting out, I think I've gone through just about every media, every different facet of art, from pastels, watercolors, drawing, printmaking, acrylics, oils. But my passion, just like Ralph, is murals. And what I love about it is that I can bring in community. I can bring in young artists, young aspiring artists, kids that want to learn to draw, to paint, and involve them in something. When they step back, they look at it and they're overwhelmed with or the impact of it, having participated in something of that size is incredible and makes an impact on them throughout their lives. So that's what I enjoy, involving community, involving youth, young artists, and sort of said, putting that spark in them, seeing their eyes light up. That's what I like.
All right. Gracias, Guillermo. All right, Amalia, por favor.
No, I think it's Carmen.
All right, Carmen.
Well, I'm, oh my God. If it's out, how do I'm sorry. So I've always seen myself as a painter, and as a young child, that was my vision, that I would someday go to Paris and paint, and I was able to accomplish that by the support of my family. And I worked maybe for 20 some years with the, I'm sorry, I have to find a way to mute this.
Connected.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Can this be edited out?
Don't worry about it.
Just unplug it. I'm using my husband's office and computer. So okay, going back to my medium, I've always seen myself as a painter, and in particular painting with acrylic paint, using the paint in various ways of transparencies when I was working on canvas or paper. And then when I worked in the schools, the 20 some years I worked in the schools, I began to use paint, acrylic paint, in a different way. As Yermo and Ralph were talking about, the actual act of working with, with children, with young adults on walls, then that paint is transformed in another way. It becomes this vibrant, opaque, rich color. And as a woman, I really enjoyed that aspect of when I would be, let's say, painting from a scaffold and having children, particularly girls, see me up there on the scaffold and wonder about, being up there and being, I think, inspired that they too could be painting and doing something that gave them a feeling of empowerment. And I also want to say, as far as what medium, there was a time I didn't paint. My daughter became critically ill, and all I could do at the time was to tend to her. And after she died, it was really difficult for me to get into doing anything, but I got into working with clay, and I let my hands work through the grief. And now at a point where I can see myself painting, even though I'm retired from working in the schools, I see myself in these last years painting again, using color.
Wonderful, thank you. Amalia.
That was so beautiful, Carmen. Well, I wanted to be at the end because I am not a painter. As a matter of fact, I had the world's worst color sense, and I got a degree in painting from San Jose State, but I think they thought I should maybe not do that anymore. And I came out in the Phelan Awards show in San Francisco in the late 60s because I was working in new media materials, which were forms of sculpture. But by the 70s, I associated myself with the Galería de la Raza, and I began working on the collective ofrendas because I was mentored by Yolanda Garfias-Wu, who's one of the very first people who did the Days of the Dead in San Francisco. And she was friends with Ralph Madariaga and Renee Yanez at the Galeria. So that became my second home. And I have to say that over the years, and that's been almost 50 years now, I have in fact changed my form many times, even though it's all within the same medium. And that's what others would call installation or 2- and 3-dimensional work. I love doing the ofrendas, but I found that I wanted to innovate on the tradition of it, which was the 3-tiered altar. And I began to do women's vanities as altars. And my Dolores Del Rio piece, which I did in the mid 80s and redid in the early 90s, was acquired by the Smithsonian Museum. So it is an established form for me. But then I began to think about other kinds of sacred spaces. So over the years, I've used forms related to the yard shrines, the capillas, the descansos, the roadside shrine, home altars, and all of those transformed over years into other kinds of, I guess, investigations. When the 1992 centennial came along, I found myself very angry that they were celebrating something that many of us really saw as an invasion, not a discovery. And so I began working on pieces around landscape, politics, history, and I began to do gardens and landscapes, but inside of museums. I then moved finally to libraries and laboratories, and eventually into World's Fairs and Wunderkammers. All of them are types of forms that have to do with false histories of Indigenous and Latino and African people. And my quest has always been to use my work to bring a sort of reality, a transformation to that false history. So I do a fair amount of research with my pieces. I develop the idea, then I develop the image, then I begin to make the objects, then I collect the objects. I often use fabrics. So my works are multimedia and multidimensional. And that's really the way that I have maintained the form of what was originally the ofrenda. And I would say that all of my pieces have somewhere in them some form of the sacred. So even when I did the very large Wunderkammer at UCLA's Fowler Museum, where I was allowed to work with their collection of Mesoamerican, African, and colonial pieces, I worked to create a cabinet of curiosities, one of which is visible on the Art League site. And with that one, I created a series of prints. So I started doing digital prints probably around the early 90s, because I use them a little bit like workbooks for my installations. And I've continued to do them. And what I did with the New World Wunderkammer and the Cabinet of Curiosities was try to provide some sense of the history and the healing and reality of pieces that were taken by force from the Mesoamerican world and from the African world. And so that has been a secondary part of the work I've done. I've studied curanderismo. I am very interested in the traditions of healing. And I feel that as artists, part of what we're doing is revealing not just our personal views, but the histories of our community. And sometimes we're in the business of healing the tremendous distress and struggle that our families have gone through. I'm the daughter of a farm worker and a maid, and I remember what life was like, and they were both undocumented. So I lived in a sort of half-life when I was a child, trying to be sure not to cause any trouble, trying to be sure. It didn't work though, of course, because I've always gotten into trouble. But so to me, art is like a form of healing. It's a way of life. It's a story, and it's a question, and sometimes even an interrogation of the false histories that people have told about us.
Mhm.
So that's it.
Gracias, Amalia.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll go on to the second question, and I think that if I think about when I was thinking about the questions that I wanted to ask, I think that this one is, I know that to me personally, as an Afro Latina, is probably one of a really big question, that I want to ask. Though American societies, seems to have somewhat become awoke to everything that's happened last summer with George Floyd. We know that racism and identity, these are issues that have been in all our lives for a very long time, and so this is a question that's that resonates a lot for me, and that is, I want to ask the artist to talk a little bit about what it means to be a Chicano, Latina, Latino, Latinx artist in this moment that we are right now. So let's see. We'll start with Ralph.
Well, when I started participating in being I guess a community activist or whatever, back in the 60s, we were talking about racism, systemic racism, institutional racism, whatever. And lo and behold, now it's become normalized.
Yep.
And in one sense, it saddens me because, being an idealist back in the 60s, I thought, by this time in my life, things would change. And they haven't. They haven't. It's people have carte blanche to call you anything they want in terms of racial epitaphs. But also, it in terms of ideas for images. I mean, it's amazing. The last 4 years, and who shall not be named. Just for me, just brought all these images out, and I'll be honest, I'm just saddened right now. I'm just totally saddened. The stupidity, the ignorance, the not caring for humanity just pisses me off, to be quite frank. I've been watching. going to give a shout out to MSNBC because I love Rachel Maddow. She's my number one person. And, you know, I see on her face, you know, just the angst, you know, just the frustration of, you know, wanting to grab these people by the shoulders and just say, think, you know, think about what you're doing right now. And so as an artist, you know, as a Chicano, and with a person who doesn't have a heck of a lot of years left, I'm just hoping that there'll be some positive changes, you know, in our future. And I, you know, I've been so frustrated. I'm just so angered, so pissed, so just, you know, watching these children being caged at the border, you know, I mean, just being caged like animals, you know, and people basically being treated like animals that basically just want to come here for a better life, you know. And this whole nationalism or this whole white supremacy, this whole is totally getting out of hand. You know, people feel that they have permission now to go out and abuse people of color. And I don't want to, you know, go off anymore, but that's what it's like being Ralph the Chicano in this day and age.
All right, thank you. Yermo.
Yeah. I'm 76, okay? So I feel good right now. I'm still climbing scaffolds. I'm still painting. And believe it or not, you know, I'm getting better at it. But I got a lot of young artists. I got a lot of young artists kind of in the orbiting around me, watching what I'm doing. And I'm being given a lot of respect by these young artists for the efforts, for the struggles that I've been involved through for the last 40, 50 years, or mid 60s, right up to present day. So I actually feel good, and I feel that I can share a lot. And I'm in a position that I can stir consciousness. I can stir cultural pride. I can stimulate and activate that unconscious DNA memory of who we are, where we come from. You know, so I like that. I feel good about that. I can do that, and I want to continue doing that as long as I can. That's where I'm at, you know.
All right, thank you. Please do continue. Continue to do that. All right, Carmen.
So for me, being a Chicana now is more like, this is really the most critical time, I feel. Even though we are isolated, I feel that this is a time within us, for those of us, I'm speaking for myself, who do not have outside contact with anyone right now. The isolation has been more of in this time, going inside. And so as a critical time, I find myself thinking about my ancestors. And as recent as my own, you know, parents, what they had to go through to be here. And like my father having to be swum across the Rio Grande to make it here. And my mother being stuck in Panama because she didn't have the money to come forward and to pay for a passage. And so family, ancestors, what they had in their struggles, it all becomes for me in a way, not relative, but this particular perspective of, with great gratitude that they did what they did, and we are here to continue whatever is possible in the legacy, whatever is possible in the communicating and connecting. And right now, what is sustaining me in this time, what continues to touch my heart, are these stories, are the myths, are the legends, anything that the music, all that which brings beauty into life right now, given where we are. And more so for me, because I am coming close to the latter part of my life, very close. Ralph, I don't know if we're going to have a contest or not. I think I might beat you.
Do you want to be the tortoise or shall I be the hare?
But I think the critical or vital part in my life right now is a spiritual practice, a shamanic practice, and meditation, and all of that which I feel is really deeply interwoven into our culture and traditions.
Right. Thank you, Carmen. All right, Amalia.
Okay. What I want to say ditto for everything everyone talked about, because I think we're all experiencing that sense that Ralph talked about of being so angry, and at the same time, you know, tan triste. It's just sad, and at the same time, I guess like Carmen, I fall back on my own personal like histories and my own spirituality. But I also, because of the kind of work I do, spend some of my time in the museum world. So I want to say that I think that one of the most interesting things that's happening right now is that because of the Black Lives Matters movement, many museums have tried to, you know, convince themselves that they're going to do better, but I don't think that's really happening, because if we pay close attention, when the COVID hit and they had to shut down and their budgets were just really slaughtered by the loss of audience, when they had to cut staff, they cut staff that was the newest hired and often the most diverse. So what we're struggling with now is, at the midst of all of that, the whole Latinx, and I would say less Chicanx, more Latinx movement had already begun. I mean, I think went to the first gathering at the Ford Foundation about 4 years ago, and there've been 2 or 3 since then. And so the dialogue around how we will be represented in not just the art world, but in the broader cultural conversation, which is why I think that the Califas Project has been so wonderful, because Betsy and Felicia and so many other people, Shelby, all others, you, Lydia, have helped move people's work onto the Google sites so that other people can see the work. But I think we are still in the process of growing a generation of curators and museum people that can understand the culture itself. Part of the reason that our work is not easily collected is because our work is often tied to issues of justice and political meaning, which museums have a hard time dealing with.
Yes.
So Ralph and Guillermo, and to some degree, Carmen, inhabit the public art world, which I know well from my dear friend Judy Baca and some others that I've worked with. And that has, I think, a greater sense of opening, because you don't need the same sort of permissions. I mean, I know you need it for the site and et cetera, and you need to be funded, but the museum world is like a series of gates that have to be opened. And so I think we're in a time now, it's kind of a tipping point. And on March 18th, I'm going to be on a panel in Syracuse University with a number of other artists and curators around the issue of deaccessioning. If you get a chance to read this month's or this last issue of Art News, they have a whole discussion on the change of museums and this phenomena of deaccessioning. In other words, selling off art. Now, there are rules in the museum world that did not allow that to happen unless you were using that money to buy other art. But the Museum Association changed the rules because of the crisis in museums and has given them permission to sell off work so that they might be able to use the money to pay salaries and to sustain some of the losses. So on one hand, I know that some of the deaccessioning is getting rid of older artists and bringing in new, more diverse artists with the money. But in other cases, it's not. So there are two worlds. There's the real world that we're talking about with families evicted, without food, children in cages. And then there's the art world, which lives in its own little sort of mini drama. And I look at both of them because some of what I do straddles those two spaces. But I do think we are in a moment of change. I like to think that the Trump and the January 6th and the QAnon and the aftermath is like the last dying gasp of white supremacy. And we knew it would be bad. We knew it's just like, you know, when you get an animal cornered, they just thrash and break things and hurt people. But I cannot help but believe that we will pass through it. And that one of the things that will come out of it for us is our position in the broader culture because of what we have contributed, because of what we have done. So I have hope when I'm not angry, which I sort of vacillate between the two spaces. That's where I am now.
All right.
Oh,
All right. Gracias, Amalia. I want to, before we move on to the last question, I wanted to invite you. My colleague Mia put a link to the exhibition in the chat box. So I hope you have a chance to click on it and check it out, or you can go to the Art League's website, and you can also go to the Museo Eduardo Carrillo's website to see the exhibition. We are super, we're just so honored to have you all here, and I hope you take some time to also look at the exhibition online. And for the third question, I'm going to pass on to my Art League board member, Edward Ramirez. He's going to ask this third question. So,
last question is, what message do you have for young artists? Kind of like myself. Let's start with Ralph.
Oh, geez. I'm feeling really good tonight. I get to be first every time.
Yeah, Ralph.
Well, I see our future generations, the kids coming up, the younger folks like yourself coming up as our greatest natural resource. You're our future. You're what's going to make this world better. That's what kind of keeps me going. Is the fact that, as Yermo was saying, man, it's like, when you get these young folks involved in the mural process and they step back and they look at the mural and they're just like, whoa, and it's just not so much about the art itself that I tell kids. What I try to tell myself is, was your art try to make a difference, try to make this a better world, because that's the kind of legacy that I want to leave for the younger folks that I work with. Yes, things do seem bad right now, but if you persevere and you try to make a difference in the community, and you do imagery that reflects the concerns, the issues of the people that live in a certain location, it'll make a better world. And that's all I have to say.
Powerful. Thank you for sharing. Yermo.
yes. Message to young people. I think I like to tell kids, it's your only limitations is your imagination. But I think it's important. I think what brought me to muralism is the potential of art with community, communication, education, documentation of our history, our culture. So we're stimulating consciousness. When we do something, we put it out there on a wall, somebody sees it. Yeah, it's educational, you know, it's stimulating. And we have to, I believe we have to understand the potential or the power that we have when we wheel that brush around, you know. To me, it's a powerful tool, it's a powerful instrument. And with the murals, it's not just the individual artist working in a studio, but you're working with community, you're working with the youth of that community that then become a part of that project. So I think more than anything, that's I feel that that's important for young people, young artists, young muralists to understand that they have that potential. It's not about coming in and doing a mural project by yourself or your assistant and then jamming. You know, I involve young people. I go to the schools. I have everyone from second grade on up, you know, participating, putting a little bit of paint in there, even if it's 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then the next group would come through. So that every child and just about every child in that school becomes a part of that wall. And when their parents and them are coming through, they're going to say, hey, I helped do that, you know, and you are empowering them, you know. Now the message that you put in there is also, you know, very important. You know, some places we're more free to express what we really feel and think, you know. So I think that's what I like to share with people, you know, fully understanding what we're capable of as artists. You know, we're documenting, we're writing history, we're sharing our history, our culture. We're giving identity back to our community, you know, which to me is real important, you know. And I believe that we have a right to know who we are, what our history is, what our culture is about, you know. That's what I feel they need to understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Carmen, your response?
Okay, well, when I think about the message, I almost instantaneously thought, if I could say something to a young woman artist in whatever she was having her heart set to create and to make a difference, it would be not to be distracted. By that, I maybe think that that is a message for myself that has often come as an individual. As a woman, that often I found myself pulled in different directions, and my art, my work sometimes would have to wait. And so my message would be not to lose sight, and ultimately not to lose heart for what it is that you dream to do. And from the artist who spoke a while ago, Felipe Herrera, a reminder of how briefly we are here.
Mhm.
And with that, you know, I'm raising a teenager, and I remember when he was just a baby in my arms, and now he's 15. And I don't know what the world will have for him in the future. I don't know what is in store. And each of us, you know, are stepping into this in a way that there is an unknown, but where we can make a difference, even if it's just an incremental personal connection, that is, I think, is going to be the critical thing in our lives, our legacy. That's it.
Thank you. Let's see, Amelia,
Ah,
what message do you have for young artists?
well, one of the things I think often about is that we are portrayed as individual artists. You know, we're solitary individuals. There's always been that 19th century model of the French artist painting in the garret, all alone and suffering. But the truth in our community is that it is not a lonely pursuit. We often work with others. I mean, Ralph and Carmen and Guillermo, all are examples of it. I do it in a different way. But for me, I've learned that art is my vehicle, but community is really my goal. It's what I'm after. And I say that to young people. Yes, you go ahead on your own and you get your education, but you build relationships with other people and friendships and collaborative work. And that network will hold you in good stead. And as the years pass, and you know, we know this as artists, it takes 10 to 15 years before you hit your stride, before you can claim what is your form. It just doesn't happen overnight. It takes many years. And in that time, also what's clarified in your form is the meaning of your work and the purpose of it. And so when I talk to young people, I try to tell them, you know, that if you want to last doing this, you have to find the purpose in the work for yourself and for the community that you belong to. Because just doing it to get famous or just doing it to get collected or just doing it, I don't know, for whatever reason, isn't enough. It won't last. It just doesn't last. The only way it lasts is if you know that what you're doing contributes to other people. And we've all said it in different ways, whether we call it justice or whether we call it culture or whether we call it ancestors or history. It is what keeps us going. And I also encourage students, especially art students, to not be narrow in their thinking what it means to be an artist. So I encourage them to engage in scholarship, to read and be exposed to different things, and especially different cultures. I mean, one of the big debates going on right now in this whole Latinx art world thing is the role of Afro-Latinos. And Val referred to it earlier, but it's really a huge topic. And it came up because in Black Lives Matters, the Afro-Latinos were not necessarily included. And often in the Latinx gatherings, they're not included. So they're somewhere in that space. And I've been very interested in the mestizaje for many, many years, especially the tercer raíz. I'm third generation and my family intermarried with African and African-American people. So I know from the experience of my own family that that's a sort of unspoken part of Mexican culture, and we need to open that up in the same way that the Caribbean folks are beginning to talk more and more about the role of Afro-Latinos. So I did a project at the Galeria back in the 90s when I got my MacArthur, and it was called Regeneration. And the reason I did it was because over the years, young people would come to me or Carmen Lamascaza or Judy Bach or other people and ask us about the movement and about the Casas de Cultura and how did we do this and how do we do that. So we put it together, and for 3 years, we gathered young people who were interested between the ages of 18 and 35. Now this was in the 90s. So now they're all spread out across the country. Some of them are senior curators, some of them are museum directors, some of them are very established artists and painters and muralists and public artists. And all they needed was a space to gather, and all they needed was a sort of intergenerational lift. And I really feel that's one of the things that is the legacy of our work. And that is to make sure, like the relay racer with the baton, that when we hand off that baton to the next racer, that we put it squarely in the middle of the hand so they don't drop it. Otherwise, we won't know how long our beliefs and values can go on. So, you know, I do think the tipping point, the change, whatever you want to call it, is really a promise from us to the youth that the future will have a place for them. And I think we have to work to ensure that in whatever way we can.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Those are really inspiring words. And yeah, thank you. And do we still have time for some more questions?
So thank you, Edward. Thank you to the artist. I wanted to, I'm gonna put in the chat box in regards to what Amalia was just bringing up in regards to Afro-Latinos. As many of you may know, this weekend is the weekend of the Watsonville Film Festival, and I am incredibly excited that Consuelo Alba, the director of the festival, actually included, there's a program on the African roots of Mexico. So there's a film that's available. By the way, the Watsonville Film Festival is virtual and free. And so tomorrow evening, I think at 7 o'clock, there's going to be a virtual dance presentation of African roots in Mexican dance, in Mexican folkloric dance. And there's also a film that you can watch that also talks about the African roots in Mexico. So I hope you, I'm gonna put it in the chat in a minute, and I hope you can check it out. So we've done so good with the time that we actually have. We have about 9 to 10 minutes, and if anyone has a question, probably the easiest way might be to go on, to put your question in the chat, and I am happy to relay it to the artist. Sometimes it's hard to like see hands lift and everything. So if you can put your questions in the chat, that would be great. And so let's see. So Gabriela Gomez had a question. And by the way, Gabriela is the writer for Califas. And so we're super happy that she's here tonight. And she put a question in the chat. She says, let's see, to educators beyond high school, the young adults at universities such as UCLA, what thoughts would you say about the legacy of this art of Chicano, Chicanx, or Latino, Latinx, or Central American? So anyone, we don't have to go, in order of the artists. Anyone that would like to jump in and share, that would be awesome.
Well, I've worked a bit with Judy Baca at UCLA, and actually she has a Central American student from her graduate program that's now heading Spark. And one of the things that I think we've come to realize is that sometimes even the term Chicano is off-putting to the new generation. I think it's a mixed bag. Some people claim it and some people don't. But what it makes it very difficult is that not enough institutions have made a place for that work. So we depend on our writers and art historians and sometimes filmmakers, because the institutions that hold on to the work, there are not enough of them. When we did the Cara show, Chicano Art, Resistance, and Affirmation out of UCLA, which traveled for a number of years. And then there was another show called The Monde des Anges, and that was in the 90s, and that traveled in Europe. But there have not been any really large Chicano or Latino shows in these last years. So I think that it's the idea of a legacy and how to preserve it and make it accessible to students is still a challenge. I remember when we were first starting out at the Galleria, we wanted to get some information from UC Berkeley, and we asked them what Chicano work they had. And they wanted to send us to the folkloric library because they didn't think that Chicanos were contemporary artists.
Yeah.
Now that's changed to some degree, but I still think that we have a long way to go to build a body of work that's accessible publicly to students coming up. UCLA, I'm going to say, was actually not one of the best, even though they have the Chicano Research Center there. And they do have the Aver books, which are part of a series. But we just have a long way to go, a long way.
Right. Thank you, Amalia. I have a question here for whoever would like to talk, to answer. The question is from Shirley Flores Munoz, who is she's a local artist, amazing poet, and board member with Pájaro Valley Arts. And her question is, how can artists remember the pandemic of Mexico 1521 while experiencing the current pandemic? Wow. That was a powerful question, Shirley. That there's a silence now.
1521.
Yeah, I don't understand the question.
You know, when the Spanish arrived, they brought everything from smallpox to like
Yeah.
name it.
Yeah.
And there was a pandemic and millions died from the diseases and forced labor and cruelty.
Yeah.
And the question is, I guess, in a comparative sense, what do we learn from that that can help us through this? I'm assuming that's maybe one of the subtexts, and I'm not sure we know enough about 1521, which is another part of the history that's been left out, that we don't have access to unless we really study it, and many of us haven't.
I'm just starting to study it. I got a book called The Other Slavery by a writer out of I think it's San Jose, and I'm just starting the book, so I can't really comment on it, but it talks about the other slavery, the enslavement of the indigenous people when colonization started here in the United States, which is not spoken of, or but they have found documentation in a few cases. A lot of it was not because it was illegal, according to the Rey of Spain. But yeah, I'm just kind of getting into that. So that's about all I know, So.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. There's a question. There's a question in the chat, and I'm actually, let's see. I'm gonna pose this question actually to Betsy Anderson with Museo, because I think she can speak a little bit about that. And the question is, will there be resources about Califas Legacy Project for school and educators? So, Betsy, would you mind?
No, you've
Thank
got
you.
me on one of my favorite topics. And also specifically for this project, the Califas, the Ancestral Journey was designed, created by Felicia into a trade edition, which she and I received grant funding from our city, Santa Cruz, to give away to educators and people specifically who work with teens, because we have a very big feeling that it's important to allow young people to feel connected with the artwork in a really personal way. And there are books. Thank you, artists. Thank you, Califas artists, that have been printed in a series called Hablamos Juntos. Also, there's curriculum, but the Califas Legacy book worked with a group of middle school students, and each one had an image and wrote a personal narrative, and Val was a teacher in that classroom. So we believe very much there's completely free for download resources to connect artwork. We have on our website this artwork for anyone who would like to use it. And we believe in getting it out there and having people connect to it, and just so inspired and moved by what everybody has shared, the panelists and the moderators.
Well, thank you, Betsy. Well, we we have come to, it's 7:30. So I am just so, so grateful. I have so much gratitude for, for this conversation. I think that this is definitely one of the things that I miss the most, as the director of the Art League. I just, everything that I have to do every day is always enhanced by my conversation with artists. And I'm just so grateful that you all are here tonight, that we got to have what, I don't know about you guys, but it felt to me like a really intimate conversation that, that we, got to, see one another and hear about everyone. As I said, the exhibition is now online. You can go either to the website for the Art League or for Museo Eduardo Carrillo. I also want to acknowledge Felicia. We didn't get a chance to say hello earlier, but Felicia, as Betsy was saying, she is the goddess around this amazing book, with this amazing project of the book. And so we're incredibly appreciative and grateful and excited to get to check out the book. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm just so grateful. Thank you for my co-host, Edward Ramirez. Thank you for my colleague at the Art League, Mia Sotero, who's been in the background helping out. I am very grateful. I sincerely hope that I will see you all very soon. So please, stay healthy and safe. Have a beautiful evening. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí. Esta es algo bien, bien especial para mí. So thank you very, very much. This is really special. And we'll see you all in the galleries, hopefully sometime not very far from today.
Great. Hasta luego a todos.
Hasta
Thank you all.
luego.
Everyone.
You all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.